And we are back. And we are at one of my most excited times of this entire conference. We've had some amazing speakers this morning who have joined us. We've had some networking sessions. We had a mindfulness session. We had all sorts of things coming up, but it was leading up to a big moment of our keynote here, Seth Godin. Now, Seth doesn't need an introduction. We all know that. Many of us know Seth, but I'm going to speak more personally about my experience with Seth. And I've never actually met him, but I have quite a few of Seth's books, and I thought I'd pull it out. And over the years, I've read pretty much most of the books that he's written. I followed his blogs, and I followed his thinking because of what he presents. See, I read his book on tribes when I was in first year university, many of you that are here at this conference, and it shifted my way of thinking. It helped me understand that there was a tribe for me, and there was a group of people for me to lead, to innovate for, and to really push boundaries. Seth is a man who he's created more than 19 best-selling books. The Dip, The Lynchpin, The Purple Cow, Tribes, and so much more. He is renowned for not just his marketing intellect and his books that he's written, but he actually founded 2 companies. And Yoyodyne, I think it's called, Yoyodyne was actually acquired by Yahoo, which was amazing. He is an entrepreneur. He's a marketer. He has been inducted into the Marketing Hall of Fame in 2018 and in the Direct Marketing Hall of Fame in 2013, making him one of the only people in both Marketing Hall of Fames, which is super exciting. And you know what the best part is that Seth is doing this completely free as a volunteer to give you his wisdom and his time here today. I've been fanboying all day. Let's get Seth up on the screen here so that we can see him and that we can be able to learn from him. Seth, thank you so much for joining us. I'm out here fanboying. Let's give him a big round of applause. A big round type of applause is what we've been calling it, to make sure that you can feel the energy from all across the world, all across Canada. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will leave it to you from here.
Thank you, Fad. Super generous of you. If people want to type anything in the chat, it's great to know, because I can't see you, I can't hear you, and your energy matters at least as much as mine. I came here to ask your help. I want to start by telling you the story of Annie Kenney. In about 100 years ago, women in the United Kingdom did not have the right to vote. And Annie Kenney was your age. And she went to a event where her member of parliament was speaking. So was Winston Churchill, who was only 30 years old at the time. And Annie stood up and said, "When are women going to have the right to vote?" And her MP said, "Sit down, little girl." And a minute later, she stood up and she said, "When will women have the right to vote?" The third time she did it, they arrested her. And because she went to jail that day, she became a sensation in the United Kingdom. And they ended up shortly thereafter passing the right for women to vote, women's suffrage. And suffragism then spread to the United States. I don't know when it happened in Canada, but it's because one person stood up and said, "Follow me." And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to look around the world in our plague year of 2020 and come to the conclusion that we've got a lot of challenges. And that's why I'm here to ask your help. Because we're not going to move forward because people hustle. We're not going to move forward because you come up with some clever tactic, because you get funded even. We're going to move forward because you bring a generous point of view, because you help somebody. And this idea of doing work because you can make a contribution needs to be at the heart of what you do, because it is tempting. And there is a long list of people willing to show you this hack or that shortcut to chase those, because it feels like you have a lot of insufficiency, that we live in a world with too much scarcity. But I don't buy it. I think that, in fact, that might be what we are promoting, but that's not really who we are. So my next story is about Canada. I've spent 42 of my 60 summers, at least part of them, in Algonquin Park, Ontario, the most beautiful place on earth. And in order to get to Algonquin Park, you've got to fly to Toronto and rent a car, and then you got to drive up the 400 to Highway 11. Highway 11 is a disaster. Highway 11 is an outdoor strip mall. Highway 11 is just one failing business after another. I can only imagine what COVID did to Highway 11. But as you're driving up Highway 11 in anticipation of getting to the park, you will pass Weber's. And even as a vegetarian, I still stop for the fries. Weber's is a hamburger stand with 40 people waiting in line to get in. And right next to Weber's is a place called Candy Shop, run by a woman named Rita. And a couple years ago, I stopped by shortly after she opened to check in on Rita. And Rita told me that the average customer was spending $60 a visit, and that she and her husband were taking home six figures in profit every year. So the question is, why is there a line at Weber's when every place else is empty, and why is Rita's doing so well? Is it because they got funding? Is it because they figured out a business plan? No, it's none of those things. It's because they did something that people wanted. It's because they showed up with peculiarity, with idiosyncrasy, with distinction. It's because they showed up seeking to make things better by making better things. And I can tell you from personal experience that almost everything you do is going to fail. Almost everything I did has failed. I started one of the very first internet companies. Failed and failed and failed. For years and years and years, people laughed at me. And then one day it worked so great. But I wouldn't have been able to keep going if it was for me. You have to do it because you think you're going to make things better. And making things better is not measured in, did you make a living? Making things better is measured in, would people miss you if they were gone? If you were gone? Would people miss you if you didn't show up? Would people wonder where you're off to? And so if I can figure out how to use Hopin, I'm going to open this up in a minute, the Q&A. But I just want to tell you one other story. Didn't happen to me in Canada. Happened to me in another place with a lot of driving involved. We were on our way to a meeting for a nonprofit I work with, and it was a 7-hour drive on a single lane highway, one lane in each direction. And the guy who's driving the van would pull up behind a truck or a car that was in front of us, honking, honking, honking. And then finally he'd get a chance to pass, and he'd pass as fast as he could. And then he'd zoom up to the next bus or truck or car, honking, honking, honking. And then he would pass him as fast as he could. This went on for 4 grueling hours. My eyes were bleeding. I didn't know if I was going to make it there alive. And then finally, inevitably, he passed all the cars there were to pass. All there was in front of us was empty road. And you probably guess what happened. He slowed down. He slowed down because all he knew how to do was pass the person in front of him. He didn't know how to make his own path. He didn't know how to set his own pace. He was so busy looking around, keeping score, because he'd been brainwashed into a mindset of compliance. They didn't know what to do when there wasn't a car in front of him. Well, for all of you who have survived 8 or 12 or 15 years of organized schooling in Montreal, including CEGEP, over and over again being told what to do. And now finally, no one's telling you what to do. It's easy to go back to that safe place of waiting for someone to tell you what to do. And I'm here to beg you not to do that. I'm here to encourage you to realize that Annie Kenney changed the world when she was your age, that it is entirely possible to build something significantly bigger than yourself. Not because it's going to make some investor happy, but because it's work you are proud to do. So that's my 10 minutes of rant. If someone in the backstage or chat or whatever wants to tell me how I'm going to get your questions, here we go. Here's the first question from my organizer, but you figure out how to ask questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer them. Okay. How do you have me in? What does that mean, have me in? I don't know what that means. Did I break something? I don't know. I broke it. Fod, tell me what to do. There you go.
Right, there we go. Seth, that was a phenomenal story for you to share. Thank you so much. I'll help moderate some of the questions here.
Thank you. Perfect.
But honestly, we want to say this from the bottom of my heart. I think to many of the entrepreneurs here, your books, your podcast, your thoughts have changed our world. You've changed us, and you've impacted us in so many ways. I mean, like I said, I read Tribes when I was in first year university. I wrote in your focus journal I don't know if you can see that for my first business plan that I look back at and flip now. And, and then I read Dip when my first business was failing. And it was, one after the other, these thoughts, these ideas that I think you've shared to the masses in the world that have really affected us. And I think your key message here, which I really loved, was it's beyond entrepreneurship. It's impacting the world. It's changing the world. And that is lovely. We've got some great questions here that I'm going to take up for you. And I really like this one. Isabel Gan said, how do you ask better whys? And maybe even beyond that, how do you ask better questions? Like that's, I think, really what we're getting at there.
Right. So the 4 why method actually works. Every one of my blog posts is based on it. All you do is find something in the world you don't understand and ask why it is. Why do they check for liquids when you're about to get on an airplane? Well, because that guy had some liquids. Really? Well, why do they need to check you? Oh, well, it's not about that at all. It's about establishing a sense of fear and authority. Oh, why do they want to have a sense of fear and authority? So that you won't be nervous when you fly. That's why. Ask the question 4 times. Sooner or later, you will get to a truth. And that truth means it doesn't matter where you're coming from or what you believed before you got here. You can't reduce it any more than that. How can you find out in our culture why things are the way they are? Just keep asking until you get to the irreducible truth.
I like that. That's powerful. Another question here we got from Issam. Issam, is asking the question: how do you handle criticism for your idea that will change the world? Obviously, like Annie, like Greta, like all of big movements that start behind, they push the envelope. They're asking questions and they're pushing things where there's a lot of criticism. And how do you handle that?
Yeah, my new book comes out in 4 weeks, and if you buy a bunch of them, you're going to get one of these with it, which is a handmade on my Glowforge writer's block, they're called. And if you get this one side says this: all criticism is not the same. This is super important. Most people who criticize you, particularly on social media, are saying something about themselves. They're not saying something about you. If you're a comedian, and one person in the audience laughs, then it's not fair to say you're not funny, because one person thought you were funny. The people who aren't laughing are just saying, it's not funny to me. Oh, okay, I get it. It's not for you. And then the job is to find the people who it is for. So if you can find someone with the right posture, who is the kind of person you seek to serve, and listen to their criticism, that is priceless. But you have to ignore the criticism of everybody else.
I like that. That's really powerful. Seth, you've created a very powerful personal brand over the years, and perhaps not intentionally, in a way that's like cultivating a personal brand, but through value creation throughout many years. And you also have a distinct style of leadership, right? Perhaps, the Western American style of leadership, sometimes there's this bravado style, but you've got a much different form that you've taken. Tell me a little bit about, I want to say your secret to personal branding success, but your owning of your style of leadership too, how those mesh.
So a brand is not a logo. A brand is just a promise. Everyone has a personal brand, but if people aren't hearing you or caring about you, your personal brand is the null set. So you're going to have a personal brand. The question is, when people invite you in or listen to you, what do they expect? And so part of what it means to build a personal brand is to consistently make a promise and keep it. And you have to decide what that promise is. Most companies make the following promise: you can pick anyone and we're anyone. That's not a good promise. Another promise is, you're looking for someone cheap, we're cheap. Not a good promise, because those are both races to the bottom. And so the argument is, how can you become distinctive? How can you become idiosyncratic in whatever way you want, based on generosity, not on hustle? And then the second half of your question was about leadership. Leadership and management are not the same thing. Management is mandatory. Management uses power and authority to get people to do what you want. Leadership is voluntary. Leadership says, I'm going over there. I'm not sure it's going to work. Who wants to come? And so you can choose to be a leader, but you're not going to become a successful leader by pretending you have authority. You're going to do it by being open enough to have people want to follow you.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I love I love your take on that. I think that's so powerful for so many of us here. Leadership isn't that position. It's not management. It's any student's willingness to say, let's go over here, let's do this, let's do that. I love that. I love that. I love your your writer's block cube too, because I remember listening to one of your podcasts. It said there's no such thing as writer's block. That in itself is a creation. And you know what? I want to dig on that. So I want you to expand on that for a second on that same note for entrepreneurs. So a lot of people say, well, I don't have a good idea, or I'm not sure where to start in my entrepreneurship journey, because we've got a lot of young entrepreneurs here with us at this conference. What do you say to that style of writer's block?
Right. So yeah, because writer's block has nothing to do with writing. What you're actually saying is I don't have a proven idea that everyone says is going to work. Well, of course you don't, because you haven't done it yet. What you're also saying at the same time is I'm afraid of my bad ideas, and I'm afraid of being responsible, and I'm afraid of being on the hook. The alternative is to say, I got so many bad ideas. I'm just going to keep putting bad ideas into the world until one of them works. And the alternative is to say, I'd like to be on the hook, please. Taking responsibility would be a privilege. If you do those two things, you will not have a shortage of good ideas, because the more you work to put bad ideas in the world, the more likely it is that one of them will be better than you thought.
You don't have enough bad ideas. I think that was one of your quotes, right? I like that. I like that. That's cool. We've got some more questions here. We're going to keep going here. I've got one here from Sarah, who's, and this one's interesting. She asked two questions, and I think they actually meld into each other. One of her questions was, how do you handle the feeling of being overwhelmed? And the next one was, how do you properly spend your energy? And I think there's some connection and relationship in those two questions.
So stress is the thing we experience when we want to do two things at the same time. We want to go and not go. We want to give the speech and we don't want to give the speech. We want to start something and we don't. These are moments of stress. They lead to moments of overwhelm. What you will notice is that when you're doing something that you're sure is going to work, like packing and getting in the cab to get to the airport, you can get an enormous amount done in a very short period of time. You're not overwhelmed at all because you've done it before. So overwhelm is a symptom of stress, not a symptom of doing too much. And stress is a decision. We make that decision because we are attached to certain outcomes, because we feel committed to certain things. We have sunk costs that we're not willing to walk away from. If you are stressed because you have to give a speech, well, either don't give the speech and don't be stressed, or give the speech and don't be stressed. But don't decide that you want to give the speech and feel like you're not giving a speech at the same time. That's the recipe for stress. And so this all sounds very glib. What basically I'm saying is you can't make the feeling go away, but you can learn to dance with it. Like that. Dance with it. Dance with the feeling and own it, and own the decision that you've made there, right? And that will take away some of that anxiety. I like that. Seth, I've got a question for you, and this one's from me. You are choosing right now to spend your time with students from across Canada at this conference for absolutely free, which, as someone who is as renowned and as a professional speaker who I'm sure has, large astronomical fees that are appropriate for the work that you've done, why? I want to know why you chose to come spend some of your time at Legacy and what you see in that. Because of what I started with. The fact is, I don't really expect 55-year-old comfortable rich people to help us solve this problem. And I'm hoping that the people who are here will. Also because Sally's awesome. And also because I've been talking about education and learning for so long, I try not to be a hypocrite. The people who organize this conference learned way more than they learned in calculus today, because we don't need you to get better at tests. We need you to get better at organizing stuff. Mm-hmm. And if I believe that, then I probably should show up now and then. So here I am. That's awesome. That's awesome. I've got one more question there for you before we jump out of time here. Seth, from one of the actual founders of Legacy, who founded this conference 10 years ago, he popped in the chat here and he asked a question. He said, what do you look for in people when you want to work with them, build teams? What are you looking for? Values, characteristics, behaviors? Teaching skill is pretty easy. Teaching attitude, which is also a skill, much harder. If you find people who see possibility, and who are eager and resilient, even if they've been brainwashed into so much of what we've taught people around here about industrialism and caste, well, that attitude is priceless. I made the decision a long time ago to only work with people I've worked with before. And the way I solve that problem is by getting people to do gigs, because interviews are stupid. All you're testing for is, are they good at interviewing? And unless you're building an interview company, there's not a lot of reason for that. And so the Akimbo workshops, which I founded 5 years ago, are now run by two people who have amazing attitudes. We turned it into a B Corp last week. I don't own it anymore. And I'm just so proud of what they're building, because I believe it is possible to move past education and start learning and to make a difference. So I'm hoping that the people who are on this call will realize it's not just an opportunity, it's an obligation.
That's phenomenal. That's awesome. Usually as an MC and as a speaker, when I get to moderate and ask some questions to people who've been my idols, I take a selfie. In this case, I'm going to take a screenshot here just to give you a thumbs up. Just to enjoy that. Seth, thank you so much. I'd love to leave you with the last word instead of me thanking you with the last word or the question. Sometimes I feel people such as yourself with the capacity that and knowledge that you have, I think a last word from you, just a minute, would really send us off here.
I usually end my talks by saying, go make a ruckus. And what I mean by that is not go be annoying, go be obnoxious, or go be selfish. What I mean is have the guts to do something generous, even if you don't get credit, and especially if you have to take responsibility. So there's my last word. Go make a ruckus. Namaste. Awesome. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Seth. Guys, let's give him a big round of applause. Let's make some noise in the chat. Let's type away, say our thank yous, tag him on social media, everywhere. That was amazing. We just had Seth Godin at Legacy 2020. You got to see him live and message directly to you. Legacy conferences. Sally, he gave you a personal shout out to how amazing you are. Thank you for bringing him. Thank you for giving us that opportunity. It was amazing to hear from him, and his stoic presence and knowledge and yet charisma really, I don't know, motivated me, inspired me. I think inspired each and every one of you. Go make a ruckus. Like, go fuck shit up. Like, I think that's what he's saying. Go make a ruckus and create and build. And that's what Legacy is all about. That was awesome. I'm super excited. Guys, the next 20 minutes are a networking break. So there's a networking break. Again, so you're able to go to the expo to check out the different organizations that we have at the expo. You're able to go to the mentorship to make sure that you're engaging with some mentors. You're able to do some networking, get some people in need. Let's talk. Let's go on social media. Like, hey, go on social media, tag Seth Godin, tag me, tag people on what you learned, what you just took. That was awesome. Here's the thing. There's something else happening at the same time while you're doing networking, is that there's these 3 hidden golden eggs with one of our teas. And if you find a golden egg, you get to tell in the event chat that you got some golden eggs, and you get to play, and I think you get to win an Amazon gift card. Just super, super awesome. So go have fun networking, and we'll catch you guys in about 20 minutes. That means 6 o'clock, where we start our next series of sessions. Bye for now.